And then I saw her face. I'm a believer, and not a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm in love.
Hey guys, CYHD here, and I am back with another reaction video. And today I'm going to be reacting to two videos, and they're both by Scribbler. And the videos are called Grogar, A Hearth-Warming Horror Story Chapter 3, and Grogar, A Hearth-Warming Horror Story Chapter 4. So yes, I am reacting to the last two chapters of Grogar, A Hearth-Warming Horror Story, the reading by Scribbler. Oh gosh, this is going to be a long video, but hopefully we'll survive. Sorry guys, I still have that cough. Anyways, let's jump it in!
Hey you! Yes, you, watching this video. Do you want to own a piece of Scribbler? Only not a lock of hair or blood or flesh or anything else that will get you in trouble with the law? Well, now you can, with t-shirts, hoodies, tote bags and mugs featuring Obab Scribbler at her Teespring store. You know you want to. I shall now stop talking in third person and send you on to the video. Be lovely to each other and enjoy the show.
Alright. Okay, let's do this.
Ponytails. Read by Scribbler.
Alright, where we left off last time.
As Granny Smith crooned, the others all did their best to reflect, rest and recover. The living room's furniture had been pulled away from the center of the room and used to blockade the doors and windows. Spare linens and pillows had been used to build a large pallet in the middle of everything, and the 4 remaining little ponies were nestled in the warmth. Applejack dozed on the couch away from the others, watching the stairs and afraid of the nightmares that would come if she fell into a deeper sleep. Sweetie Belle poked her head from under the blankets and ensured the coast was clear. Once she was satisfied that Diamond Tiara and Apple Bloom were either asleep or otherwise occupied, she carefully scooted herself closer to the room's sole male occupant.
Button Mash? Are you awake?
The colt rolled over so that he was facing her. He offered the weakest of smiles.
Wouldn't it be nice if I wasn't? If all this was just an awful dream.
She returned the smile and made herself more comfortable in the blankets next to him.
That would be nice.
It would be nice, but it's not true.
Button sighed and nudged at his nearby cap.
Even if nothing else happens tonight, Silver Spoon's still gone, Apple Bloom's lost a brother, and you... Oh.
He caught himself and looked away.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Truth be told, Sweetie Belle was still trying to process the idea that Scootaloo was gone. She imagined that it would take quite some time before she stopped expecting the orange filly to come bounding up the stairs of the treehouse with some news of another colt or filly who needed help figuring out their cutie mark. Even now, she kept catching herself looking toward the stairway, like Scootaloo would just come gliding down, giggling that it was all just a big joke.
Hey, Sweetie Belle.
Hmm?
Is it true, you know, what Silver Spoon said?
When Sweetie Belle did not immediately reply, Button turned away.
Sorry, I guess now's not really a good time.
It's true. I do like you.
He froze.
You do?
Yeah. I've had, like, the biggest crush on you since earlier this year.
Button smiled.
The milkshake?
The milkshake.
I was such a dork.
You were so cute!
Button Mash reached out and took her hoof.
Not as cute as you are.
Sweetie Belle blushed as she returned the gesture, hooking their forelegs together.
I hate that you only found out about this tonight.
Tell you what.
Button scooted a little closer.
I'll be Drake the Daring, and you can be Princess Amaranth. And if I can protect you the whole night, then you owe me another milkshake this Friday.
Interesting idea.
Sweetie Belle mirrored his movements.
But I kinda wanna be the Scarlet Avenger. You let me be her, and I promise to protect you, just like she protected Drake from the 9 Warlocks of War in battle for the Hura Crystal.
Have I ever mentioned that your gaming knowledge is just as striking as that blush on your cheeks?
She blushed harder.
That was smooth for some pony who doesn't know the first thing about girls.
He looked into her eyes.
Hey, I'm a fast learner. That's how I was able to master Puzzle's Revenge in just 3 days.
Sweetie Belle broke eye contact and looked away, tormented by the swirling forces inside her. Her sadness, her terror, and her burgeoning attraction all hammered away at her young heart.
I'm so scared, Button.
He wrapped his forelegs around her and pulled her close.
Yeah, so am I. I'm scared too. Just look at me. Big old tough Button. But hey, I'm scared too.
Her soft
Yeah,
lips
everybody's
found
scared.
his as she drew closer to his warmth. It was a short kiss, small and tentative, an average first kiss, which is to say that it blew Button Mash's mind. While he recovered, Sweetie Belle rolled over and snuggled deeper into the colt's embrace.
Do me a favor.
Uh-huh.
He muttered dizzily.
Talk nerdy to me.
She sighed as she finally relaxed.
Until I fall asleep.
Diamond Tiara carefully crawled past the now snoozing Sweetie Belle and Button Mash toward Apple Bloom. The pink filly still clutched Silver Spoon's cracked glasses close to her, as though some part of her were afraid that if she let go of them they would vanish into nothingness. Apple Bloom was nestled into the farthest corner of the pallet, barely covered at all. From her position, it was unclear to anyone looking if she was asleep or simply staring at the wall.
Apple Bloom?
The young farmer shifted slightly. She and Diamond Tiara had not spoken since Silver Spoon's taking.
What do you want?
Diamond Tiara flinched at Apple Bloom's tone.
I'm sorry. About your brother, I mean.
Thanks.
Are you okay?
Honestly? No. No, I'm not okay, Diamond Tiara.
Do you want to talk about it?
Talk about what?
Apple Bloom rolled over, and Diamond Tiara could see her red-rimmed eyes.
Talk about my dead brother? Or my dead best friend? Or my other dead best friend who had a nervous breakdown first?
She glared.
Or to focus on the small stuff first? We could talk about how you've been lying through your teeth about being my friend these past few months.
Diamond Tiara flinched.
That's not fair, Bloom.
Don't call me that!
Apple Bloom snapped.
You don't get to call me that!
Apple Bloom growled, her eyes burning a hole through the richest filly in town.
Why?
Why what?
Why did you lie to me?
Now it was Diamond Tiara's turn to glare.
Now who's not being fair? I wasn't lying about being your friend, Apple Bloom.
Then why would you say that about coming over tonight?
Because I wanted to spend Hearthstone with my family, in my house.
Her grip tightened on Silver Spoon's glasses.
Is that so wrong of me?
Horse apples! Just because you're mad at your folks don't mean that you could say something so hurtful about me and my friends.
There, right there.
Diamond Tiara sat up and pointed a hoof at the yellow filly.
That's what's been getting on my nerves.
What in the hell are you?
How come I don't get to be in the same class as Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo? Even after that day, you kept me and Sylvie at hoof's length. Why? What makes us outsiders?
Apple Bloom rolled her eyes.
Because me and those two have been through a lot these past few years. We're more sisters than friends at this point.
You guys have been through a lot.
Was. You saw deeper in me than even I saw. You gave me the strength to change the very nature of my being, to even stand up to my own mother. Apple Bloom, you changed me.
She looked away.
And then you just moved on. You carried on like nothing had changed.
You make it sound like I was ignoring you.
You may as well have been.
Diamond Tiara collapsed onto the blankets and rolled over.
I thought after that day, I would finally know what it was like to really have friends. It had always just been me and Silver Spoon, you know. I kept waiting for you to invite me back to the treehouse or to go hang out at Sugar Cube Corner. I thought that's what friends did.
Apple Bloom rolled over as well.
It is.
Then the only real friends you have are Sweetie Belle and...
Diamond Tiara bit her tongue.
You only ever hang out with them. The most I've gotten out of this friendship before tonight is a greeting on the street or somebody eating lunch with me at school. Besides ponies at school not hating me anymore, nothing's changed at all.
Apple Bloom considered in the silence that followed.
You could reach out to other ponies, you know. You could be friends with just about any pony now.
I don't know how.
Diamond Tiara
Oh, you don't know how?
She wiped her eyes and looked at the glasses nestled in her fur.
Sylvie was my only real friend, and now she's gone. So what do I have now?
She curled into a ball.
The occasional wave on the street and 15 minutes of conversation on school days?
Apple Bloom stared at the wall as she processed what Diamond Tiara had said. It was true that she most often hung out with her fellow crusaders, but surely the rich filly was wrong about everything else. She had other friends, like Twist, but she hadn't had a serious conversation with her since the day she'd gotten her cutie mark all those months ago. But then there was Pipsqueak, who she hadn't said a word to in between Nightmare Night and the student pony elections. She racked her brain,
Definitely Pipsqueak.
but she couldn't find a single pony that she spent as much time with as she did her two best friends.
Do you still hate me?
It was Apple Bloom's turn to flinch at the cracking in Diamond Tiara's voice.
What?
For all those times I tormented you and made fun of you, do you still hate me?
Apple Bloom measured her next words carefully.
I never hated you. Not exactly, anyway.
But you still hold all that against me, don't you?
Apple Bloom hated herself for it, but it would be a lie to say otherwise.
Yeah, a little bit.
The two fillies lay in silence a while longer, the only sounds in the air that crackling fire and Granny Smith's aged vocals. The clock struck midnight and chimed.
Happy Heartswarming.
Apple Bloom muttered.
You too.
Came the sniffled reply.
Whoa.
Granny Smith
What kind of yawn is
yawned
that, Granny?
hugely. This was later than she'd been awake in the last 30 years, but she knew she could hold out for just a while longer. Applejack could use a little more shut-eye now that she'd finally given up the ghost and headed to Dreamland. She owed her granddaughter that much at least. But my, did sleep ever sound nice. She yawned again and launched into a sleepy, hearth-warming carol. She could feel her eyelids drooping, but she paid them no mind. She knew she could stay awake. The elder mare went limp and began to snore. The singing stopped. Silence descended on the room. Outside, the wind's howling began to rise in pitch and strength.
Oh gosh, is it gonna take Granny now?
Something huge on the roof shifted, as though it sensed a change in the air. Foolish giggles and sobs echoed down the chimney. A blast of wintry wind blasted down the brick structure and reduced the once roaring fire to a pile of icicles. It spread through the room, jolting every pony awake at once. Granny Smith stared at the pony she'd failed. She heard the chains shoot down the chimney before she felt them wrap around her body.
I called it!
Snapped into place.
We're gonna get Granny next!
Splintering her rocking chair to pieces. The dangling bells danced and sang as they mocked her failure. Run. She was yanked back up the chimney less than a second later.
No!
Applejack and Apple Bloom screamed together. The windows shattered inward all at once, the howling wind filling the air of the house with freezing snow. The The front door blasted open so hard that it flew off its hinges. Icicles began to grow from the ceiling and floor, spreading toward the panicking ponies.
We've gotta make a break for the barn!
Applejack yelled over the wind. She bolted for the front door, trusting the others to follow her. Applebloom and Diamond Tiara followed closely, Marble not far behind. Button Mash and Sweetie Belle made to follow, but a sudden gust of wind caught their small bodies and lifted them wholly into the air.
Oh no.
They screamed as the rogue gust blew
Now
them
Button
up
and
the
Sweetie!
stairs and into the second-floor hallway. Button Mash was caught in a downdraft and blown against the door to Applejack's bedroom. The impact knocked him senseless and smashed the door to splinters. He smacked against the room's far wall and hit the ground, groaning in agony. Button! Sweetie Belle cried as the wind carried her further down the hallway. She was spun around just in time to see herself rapidly approaching the end of the hall. A wall of razor-sharp icicles waited for her like spikes. She screamed as she braced for impact.
Well, those two are dead. Oh gosh, not Marble too.
Cried out as her ankle twisted. She collapsed into the snow and watched as the other 3 ponies ran to the barn. She tried to call out to them, but her screams were swallowed by the storm.
Help me!
She cried in desperation, trying as hard as she could to put weight on her damaged limb.
Please, don't leave me.
The sound of chains behind her, crystal clear above the winter's wind, made her spin and stare. Standing on the roof of the farmhouse
There he is.
was a
Grogar.
shape. It stood on 4 legs, wrapped in a shroud as black as night. It stared at her with red eyes blazing from beneath a heavy hood. 2 huge horns curved past the hood's rim. Hanging from the beast's neck was a single golden bell. Marble opened her mouth to scream. Chains emerged from the shroud. The bells that hung from them jangled merrily as they struck like serpents and claimed another soul for Grogar.
Wait, what? Oh, to be concluded. Well, I'm gonna react to the last part in this video, so stay tuned, guys. Well then, that was a pretty team chapter right there. Sweetie Belle and Button Mash just talk about how they love each other, and Diamond Tiara and Applebloom talk about about their history. That Applebloom hated Diamond Tiara in the beginning, well, just a little bit. And Diamond Tiara told Applebloom that that she helped her change. She helped her stand up against her mother. And that other part, when Granny Smith just got tied up by the chains and then dragged into the chimney, and then Button Mash and Sweetie Belle just got caught by the wind and then just flew into Applejack's bedroom, and then Marble went face to face with Grogar, that horrid beast. And oh boy, we're on to the last chapter, guys. Let's hope we can survive. Alright, let me get it set up. Okay. Alright. Let's jump it in!
Hey you! Yes, you, watching this video. Do you want to own a piece of Scribbler? Only not a lock of hair or blood or flesh or anything else that will get you in trouble with the law? Well, now you can, with t-shirts, hoodies, tote bags and mugs featuring Obab Scribbler at her Teespring store. You know you want to. I shall now stop talking in third person and send you on to the video. Be lovely to each other and enjoy the show.
Alright, last part, guys.
Ponytails. Read by Scribbler.
Spilt my drink a little, guys. And oh my gosh, my adapter almost just got unplugged from my computer.
He reached a hoof back and felt the goose egg already rising beneath his mane. He shook his head to clear his blurred vision and took in his surroundings. He was in a bedroom, plain and sparsely decorated. A spare Stetson on the bedpost gave the room's owner away. Any further analysis was pushed away by a noisy groaning coming from above. He looked up just in time to see the ceiling give way completely. He jumped back against the wall as debris and snow fell with a massive thud into the room. He coughed away the dust and shivered in the new cold that found its way into the house via the sizable hole in the roof.
And Apple promised the ceiling wouldn't collapse.
He muttered through chattering teeth. The dust cleared completely and revealed a nightmare. The thud had not come from the debris, and the ceiling had not given way from the snow. The beast that now stared at Button Mash was huge, easily 8 feet tall, with another foot or two added from the enormous curved horns that emerged from beneath the hood of the creature's black cloak. The creature shifted its position on jet-black hooves that contrasted with the midnight blue of the beast's fur. A tangled white beard hung from its chin, blowing softly in the wind. It stared at Button with eyes that burned like red-hot coals, and grinned with a mouthful of dagger-like fangs. Around the beast's neck hung a great golden bell that jingled softly with every move it made. Button Mash's mouth became dry as sand.
Grogar?
The
that's
beast's
him.
grin grew
That's him, Button.
wider, and it tilted its head in acknowledgement. Button was no longer sure if his shaking was from the cold or from fear.
But I was good this year, wasn't I?
Grogar seemed to pause a moment in consideration, then nodded his head again.
So how about we trade that for a free pass tonight?
Again, Grogar seemed to consider, then shook his mighty head with a chuckle.
But that's not fair.
Grogar shrugged his huge shoulders and took a heavy step toward the cowering colt.
Hey, goat face!
Uh-oh.
Both Grogar and Button Mash
You go,
looked at
sweetie.
the room's doorway. Sweetie Belle squared herself and glared, her minute horn lit with the same emerald light that had saved her from impalement. She was done being scared, and was now furious that the same monster that had taken her best friend was now threatening the recipient of her first kiss. She reached out with her magic and seized the heaviest thing she could find.
Get your big blue tail away from my cult friend!
Applejack's bed, bathed in Sweetie Belle's magic, rose into the air and swung like a huge oblong golf club. It struck Grogar full on and knocked the ram right through the wall and into the howling storm.
Alright, show that monster.
Button Mash stared in wonder. Sweetie Belle raced to his side and looked him over.
Are you okay?
Seeing his amazed stare, she grinned.
Yeah, I had no idea I could lift something that big.
You called me your cult friend.
Her pride deflated like a balloon.
What?
I have a bear friend! Yes!
Button Mash whooped with joy before remembering where he was.
I might also freeze to death.
Sweetie Belle shook her head and grabbed his foreleg in hers.
Save it for later, Drake. We've got to get out of here.
Button Mash let his new mare friend pull him along with a bemused smile on his face.
Whatever you say, Scarlet Adventure.
Well then, they just go on with the legends.
Now, y'all keep calm and quiet.
Applejack lit another lantern and passed it to Diamond Tiara, who passed it along to Applebloom.
We'll wait here a while and... Wait. Where's Marble?
The roof of the barn suddenly came crashing in as an enormous form crashed into the room. The three ponies screamed as the huge ram landed on all four hooves and shook off whatever impact had sent it plummeting into the room. It quickly focused its attention on the ponies, hood falling back as it turned its head sharply. Applebloom saw the horns and screamed again.
Grogar.
Yep,
Applejack
Grogar's
whispered
real.
in terrified wonder. She shook off her amazement and placed herself firmly in front of the fillies.
Not one more step, you overgrown goat!
Grogar narrowed his burning red eyes and drew from his cloak an enormous burlap sack. The top was wrapped in chains that coiled like snakes and were adorned in jingling bells. Whatever was in the sack was still moving. Applejack called on her last reserves of courage and returned the beast's glare.
You ain't gonna take these fillas! I'll die first!
Grogar grinned and
So
nodded,
you're
as
sacrificing
though she had
yourself
just
for your
described his
sister
exact
and your
plan.
sister's friend.
Applejack?
That's one
She
nice
looked
sister
back
of
at her
ours.
little sister, her last remaining family member, and remembered the promise she'd made to their dying mother.
I'll take care of this sugar cube.
Applebloom stared at her, frozen with fear. Applejack looked back at the beast.
You're not a mindless monster. You can make deals, right?
Grogar tilted his head curiously.
You've already taken 2 fillas, my brother, and my granny. That's a pretty good haul for you, I imagine.
And your brother's
Grogar twinkled
girlfriend.
his eyes and grinned. His teeth glistened in the lantern light.
If I make it a nice round 5 and I go willingly, will you leave these 2 alone?
Applebloom's paralysis broke, and she darted forward.
Applejack, no!
A quick-thinking Diamond Tiara snatched her tail in her mouth, holding fast. She stared at Applejack with complete shock that this mare would sacrifice herself for her. Grogar's grin faded, and he curled his lip in obvious distaste for the deal.
It'll work out for you in the end. These 2 will tell every pony what happened here tonight, and you'll be more feared than ever.
His grimace faded as he considered the bargain.
Applejack!
Applebloom screamed. She kicked wildly at Diamond Tiara's muzzle.
Let me go!
Applejack ignored her sister as best she could.
Well, have we got a deal?
Grogar's eyes narrowed, and he nodded. Applejack finally looked back at her sister and smiled, tears in her eyes.
I love you, sis. Be good.
Applebloom wailed as the chains unwrapped themselves from the bag and darted out. They wrapped around Applejack, and locked securely in place. The sack fell
you
onto
know,
its side and
Once
opened
Grogar
wide.
gets defeated,
Within, there was a great
will those other ponies come back to
void,
life?
from which the only sounds that could be heard were wailing winds and screaming ponies. Applejack stood fast as the chains began to drag her toward the sack. Tears flowed down Diamond Tiara's face as she held tightly to Apple Bloom. As she stared at Applejack's approach to her fate, she noticed something amazing. Applejack was getting younger.
Huh?
Every
Wait,
inch
what?
the chains dragged her seemed to take the years away from the mare. Soon, she was a stocky teenager. Another few inches, and she was a filly on the cusp of marehood. At the threshold of the sack, she was a filly not much younger than the ones she had just given her life to protect. Even her cutie mark was gone. Grogar watched the scene. with
Does Grogar
quiet
reverse
amusement.
ages?
And then he took a step toward Apple Bloom and Diamond Tiara. Applejack looked back with terrified eyes.
No!
It was a filly's cry, shockingly similar to Apple Bloom's own.
No! Grogar, no! We had a deal! We had a deal!
Grogar simply laughed
Wait,
and took
is
another
that
heavy
Big
step.
Mac in the background?
Applejack began to struggle against the
That's
enchanted
Lulu?
chains. Her muscles, honed by farm work,
Did-
no longer
Did
at her
Grogar
core.
turn
She felt her
ponies
hoof
into
touch
zombies?
the edge of the sack. She looked back at the void and felt her blood freeze. Standing just inside the bag were a colt and 2 fillies. The colt was red and unnaturally tall for his age. One of the fillies was slate grey, with a mane and tail that seemed to be as perfectly cut as stone. The other was the green of a young apple, and hair the colour of sunshine. They were all smiling at her and laughing. Tears ran from their eyeless sockets. Applejack felt the chains loosen and turned to flee, and watched as the sack drew itself closed, held tightly by the enchanted chains. Her last wail echoed through the barn.
Well then,
Apple Bloom screamed in agony and fell limp upon the floor of the barn. Diamond Tiara spit out her tail and sat heavily by her side. The huge ram took another step, chuckling loudly. The bell on his neck danced and sang with every horrible peal of laughter that came from his throat. Diamond Tiara lowered herself beside Apple Bloom, resigned to her fate.
I'm sorry.
The yellow filly muttered.
What?
I'm sorry I was such a crummy friend to you. I'm sorry that I held a grudge against you for so long.
Apple Bloom sobbed as she met Diamond Tiara's eyes. Diamond Tiara sniffled.
I'm sorry too. I'm sorry that I didn't tell you my problems sooner.
The fillies embraced, their tears running onto each other's coats.
You're a good pony, Tiara. I never told you that. And you're a good friend.
You saved me, Bloom. That's the best thing any pony's ever done for me.
Diamond Tiara felt her tiara fall and clatter to the floor.
You're the best friend any pony could ask for.
Grogar leaned toward the cowering fillies. The lanterns all died as one.
wait,
And
what?
the barn was suddenly filled with blazing light.
What's going on?
Grogar drew back with a surprised roar. He looked at the roof of the barn in confusion. The sun was not supposed to rise for hours yet, but the light was not coming from outside. Grogar looked back at his prey and found they were on fire. The 2 fillies were coated in a dancing violet flame that gave an unearthly light. The heat that came from that flame was comforting and strong, but not overwhelming. The light was the light of safety and security. Apple Bloom and Diamond Tiara were emitting the light of friendship's flame itself. Grogar roared in fury, determined not to be denied his prize. He reached out a hoof to grab the pair, and was touched by the flame. He cried out in shock and anger as his hoof caught fire. The flames spread across his entire being. He struggled against the fire's heat and light, tried to retreat into his comforting cold and darkness, but the flame would not be denied. Friendship decreed that Grogar had had his fill of misery this hearth's warming. The fire spread across the whole of Grogar's enormous frame. He bellowed in defiance, but it was far too late. The light and heat grew and grew, forcing Grogar's essence back to Tambalon for another year, the bells finally ceasing their infernal jingling. For an instant, the inside of the barn was brighter than the brightest daylight. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the light was gone.
Whoa!
Grogar's final roar faded into silence. The howling winds petered out and died. Apple Bloom and Diamond Tiara pulled apart and stared at each other in wonder.
Did we?
Is I?
Wide grins broke out on their faces, and they embraced again, squealing with joy.
Oh my gosh! Oh, I'm so glad. Hello?
They looked up to see Sweetie Belle and Button Mash standing in the barn's open doorway. Button Mash was staring at the ground beside the two fillies.
Is that what I think it is?
Yep.
All
Power
eyes
of love,
fell
y'all.
on the enormous golden bell that now rested on the ground.
the
Engraved
bell!
in ornate writing along the bell's rim was a single phrase, repeated over and over again.
For goodness sake.
The four little ponies screamed
what?
as a small shape jumped in from the hole in the roof. It was a filly.
What?
Her fur was grey, and her mane was shining silver.
Yep.
She reached out a hoof and
Silver
caressed
Spoon's
the
alive.
bell reverently. Diamond Tiara swallowed.
Sylvie.
Silver Spoon looked up sharply. Her mouth was frozen in a rictus grin. Her eye sockets were empty and staring, tears still running down her cheeks. Diamond
But
Tiara
Grogar's
reached
dead.
behind her and carefully
This should be the
handed
part
her
where-
best friend her glasses. Silver Spoon cocked her head
Where
in
the ponies come
confusion at
back,
first,
right?
then seemed to freeze.
Come on,
in
this shouldn't have a
sudden
tragic
moments.
ending.
She lifted the cracked frames to her face and adjusted them until they were perfectly centered. For a single instant, the old Silver Spoon was back. She smiled at Diamond Tiara.
Thank you. I'm so sorry.
Sylvie.
Diamond Tiara started, but the spell was broken. The grinning ghoul that Silver Spoon had become bent down, grasped the heavy bell in her mouth, and vanished out the hole in the roof and into the night beyond.
Wow.
The silence that followed seemed to stretch on forever.
Well,
Button Mash clapped his hooves together and looked around at the three fillies.
at the risk of not sounding cool in front of my new mare friend, I could really use my mommy right about now.
Huh.
The blizzard had cleared completely by the time the sun began to
Alright,
rise.
now it's morning.
The four little ponies emerged from the barn at first light and started
Come on, where
the
are the
trek
other
back
ponies? They should
toward
come back.
Ponyville. For the rest of the night, they'd comforted each other and did their best to get some sleep. Now it was time to find the others and tell them what had happened. Diamond Tiara pushed her tiara back into place and looked at Apple Bloom.
What's gonna happen to you now?
I don't know.
The filly shrugged as she walked.
Suppose they'll send me off to Manhattan to live with Babs until I get old enough to inherit the farm.
Diamond Tiara sniffed indignantly.
And have my new best friend leave for a few years? Nonsense. You can come live with me until the farm sits back up.
Apple Bloom gave the rich filly a small grin.
And I suppose you'll have no problem getting your mom and dad to agree to that?
Diamond Tiara rolled her eyes.
It's not like some pony didn't help me understand that my special talent is getting other ponies to do what I want or anything.
Behind them, Sweetie Belle was briefing Button Mash on what to do around Rarity.
Most importantly, do not tell her that we're together.
And why not?
Button pouted.
Are you embarrassed of me already?
Sweetie Belle pecked his cheek.
Of course not. But if she catches even an inkling of the fact that we're special sun ponies, she'll start fitting me for a wedding dress.
The two ran right into the tails of Apple Bloom and Diamond Tiara. The two fillies were standing frozen in the middle of the road.
I don't think Rarity's going to be a problem, Sweetie Belle.
Sweetie Belle and Button Mash pushed up until they could see what had spooked the other two.
What's going on?
Button Mash fell face first into the snow in a dead faint.
Wait!
Sweetie Belle started screaming uncontrollably and raced ahead as fast as she could. Diamond Tiara sank back on her haunches and started to laugh uncontrollably, tears running down her cheeks as the sound became not that much unlike a high keening wail.
Is that the town hall?
Apple Bloom.
Those are the houses?
The night before.
It ain't about what you believe or how old you are anymore. He's here now, and he will not stop until he has claimed his all.
But let's be honest with ourselves here. We're not just here because Bloom asked us over. We're here so our parents will get rid of us for the night.
Discarded on Hearth's warming eve.
We are all being punished for it.
Ponyville was ruined. Huge icicles peered upwards through the roofs of the houses. The buildings that were still standing were either frozen solid or packed so tightly with snow that it poured from the windows like waterfalls. An enormous snowdrift
So does that mean the other ponies are dead?
Town.
Celestia?
The town hall only visible by the uppermost part of its roof. There was no sign of any pony anywhere. They were all gone. With a sudden stirring of wings, Princess Celestia herself landed in the snow. She took in the devastated town with shock and horror. She looked down at Apple Bloom and touched her shoulder with a hoof.
My little ponies. What happened here? Where is every pony?
Grogar attacked!
Looked up at her with sunken
He attacked
eyes.
Ponyville and
The
Sweet
once
Apple
red
Acres!
mane now the same white as the snow. A single tear ran down her cheek.
Grogar came to town and punished them. He punished them all.
She grinned.
You better be good, Princess.
Wait, what?
You better be good. For goodness sake.
Without another word, she wrapped her foreleg around Diamond Tiara's shoulders and joined her in her screaming laughter. The sound of madness echoed in the emptiness of Ponyville. And just above that, just barely audible, was the ringing of a single bell.
Yo, this is not what it all ended? Those other ponies end up dead? That is insane, dang it. Why is this so good? Just remember to be good this Christmas. For goodness sake. Well then, so that was it, guys. That was pretty darn amazing. Sure, it was like the longest fanfiction ever. A few ponies ended up dead, but now every pony ends up dead. So, if you comment and you rate, and then you subscribe. Why do I talk so slowly? I mean, it's Christmas. Everyone should talk joyfully. So yeah, that was a pretty great ending. At least we get to see the cameo of Celestia at the end. And then now, Avalon's now the new Grogar, guys. Wow. I gotta say, Jade Ring, you did a fantastic job with this fanfiction. I mean, this was like the longest ever, but yeah, I still liked it. Alright guys, I'm gonna end it off here. Once again guys, thanks for watching and ahoy!